Hello everyone, this is Sasha from Virtual Performance Tool. I would like to welcome you to another preview of VPT 1.00. In today's episode, we're going to cover a quite interesting subject. It's called Virtual Dispatcher, which is an extension to the new weight and balance system. So we're going to start today's program by talking about what is a virtual dispatcher, and then we're going to dig into the demonstration. We're going to compare the previous version of the virtual dispatcher and with the new one, with all the new features. So we're going to talk about the dispatcher itself, his or her name, the random load versus the Simbrief import. We're going to also discuss the before start procedure. We're going to have a look at the LDM and LMC. We're going to have a look at all the Simbrief options. Finally, we're going to move to the load sheet with the format and have a look at the layout of the load sheet. We're going to discuss the revision number, which is a very important concept to understand here. The flight envelope with all the different documents that will be included. And we're going to discuss about the future features such as the Easy Take Lock and the ACARs. And finally, we're going to review what's coming up in the next video. So what is a virtual dispatcher? So a virtual dispatcher is your virtual assistant that takes care of some of the role of a flight dispatchers, such as it will help you generating your loads or importing your flight plan and weight from Simbrief, for example. It is going to help you to prepare your flight documents. He will create your last minute change. And finally, he or she will talk and summarize your load and kind of give you a nice immersion into reality. So let's start with the layout comparison. So this is VPT 0.99, which, as you can see, features already of a virtual dispatcher. The link to it is located under packs. And when you press it, you have a sort of load instructor document available where you can do some stuff, signing, importing from Simbrief or generate some random loads. You can also listen to the briefing, and you can import everything inside the weight and balance system. And that's pretty much it. And so this is the VPT 1.00 layout. So as you can see, the virtual dispatcher button has been relocated and is now accessible from any tab of the weight and balance page. By clicking on the green button, you will have access to the virtual dispatcher, and as you can see, there's a big change already from the previous version. It has a few sections. So we have first the dispatcher, then the load sheet, the flight envelope, and two additional subtabs for the features that will be released in the future. Let's start with the dispatcher. So as you can see here, the dispatcher name is Aziz Samba, and the name will be automatically generated based on the airport of departure. So if you're flying out of Italy, you have Italian dispatcher, which can be male or female, and so on and so on. Here is a summary of the load. So you have the number of adults, children, and number of infants, and a summary of your zero fuel weight. And on the right side, this is how you can actually communicate with the dispatcher, or more precisely listen to the dispatcher, who will brief you about the load sheet and the last minute change. At this moment, those actions are not available because the flight plan has not been generated yet. On the second line of the dispatcher, we have the tools to generate a load. It can either be a random load on the left side following some sort of logic, or it can be direct import from the Simbrief system. Let's start by generating a random load with a normal logic. And as you can see, the system has generated a load of 151 adults, 7 children, and 1 infant for roughly 56.2 tons as a zero fuel weight. Everything has been inserted into the weight and balance system. So if you close the virtual dispatcher and move to the packs section, as you can see here, all the passenger has been included and seated in the different zones of the cabin. The same happened with the cargo. The load has generated some bags to the passenger, and those bags were being distributed among the holds following the optimum logic. Remember from the previous video, the optimum logic is about 2/3 of the flight envelope. What's left to do is fill out the fuel information, as the virtual dispatcher cannot guess your flight plan and fuel requirements. And there you will have a fully ready weight and balance system in just a few clicks. And now let's import a Simbrief flight plan. So I have generated a flight plan using the Simbrief system. I fly from Brussels to Fiumicino, Roma, Italy. And we're going to import this by using the Simbrief button. As you can see, it only took a second or two to import your Simbrief flight plan into VPT, the weight and balance system, using the virtual dispatcher. And during that short time, a lot has happened backstage. So as you can see, we have now a dispatcher name, Peter Robert, as we are flying from Brussels. So this is a common name in that region. We have the passenger load here, 179 adults, no infant and no children, for a zero fuel weight of about 58.9 tons. As you can see here, a lot has changed as well in the flight document, in the before start procedure. So this has nothing to do with your aircraft, but it's rather a help for you to use the VPT tool with steps in order to prepare your flight. So as you can see, VPT suggests you to first calculate your takeoff dispatch with no takeoff weight inserted, so that it gives you your restricted performance for that airport and runway. Do the same for the landing dispatch, so calculate your landing performance at, in this case, Fiumicino. So once you do that, both will turn green. It requests you to add the registration and the flight number. So this has been automatically imported from the Simbrief. And see, the Simbrief import also has loaded the aircraft with passenger, bags and cargo, and fuel. So now your weight and balance is fully completed and within limits. What's left to do is generate a load sheet, and then with the load sheet, use the takeoff weight to calculate your actual takeoff performance. And this before start procedure is not restricting you in any way how to use the tool, but it's a very nice guidance. If all those steps are green, you certainly did a great job using the tool as realistic as possible. Let's move next to the load distribution message. There is a small bug that I found out by shooting this video. The load distribution message has not been updated after the Simbrief import, so I just need to update the flight plan number right here. And the LDM is now fully correct. This will be obviously fixed way before the official release of VPT 1.0. So what is the load distribution message? So this is a message that will be sent to your destination airport, to the ground handling, with a lot of information regarding your loads, so your passenger loads, your child, infants, how many bags you have, the weight of the bags, so the cargo in general, if you have any specific cargo, mail, equipment, and so on and so on. The LMD uses standard format. I'm going to not dive into it in details, but I can give you a few notes here. So Bruce is at the airport of departure. So this is the handling agent. It's an LDM message, so load distribution message. We have the flight plan number. Today is the 24th. This is the aircraft registration. Aircraft type, the aircraft cabin configuration. So we have 189 passenger or 189 seats. And we have a crew of 2 and 5. This is the destination, Fiumicino. We have 179 passengers, no child, no infants, and we have a total of about 2.3 tons of cargo, and this has been spread among the hull 2 and 3, and with the associated weight. As you can see here, the passenger information. So I have 179 passenger, and we have a 179 bags. This is a lot, but this is coming straight from the Simbrief logic. And finally, again, a reminder of the bag's weight right here, which could be actually different from the cargo if we had any cargo on top. Moving on to the LMC, which is short for last minute change. And as you can read here, a load sheet must be generated in order to enable LMC. So we're going to come back to this part later. And finally, there's Simbrief options available. You have your latest flight plan that has been loaded at 55, which was 7 minutes ago. This is the first revision of the flight plan. The flight number is VPT 1234. Flying from Brussels to Fiumicino on the 24th of September 23. You can actually view your RFP here. As you can see, it opens a new tab where you can scroll out through your flight plan. And below you can actually see there are 2 ways to import your Simbrief data. And I have included those because I had a lot of complaints or at least misunderstanding from customers who were quite surprised to have a difference in loads with Simbrief and VPT. Simbrief weight and balance system is very basic. It's can even say it's rather stupid. It assumes some very simple facts like every passenger will have a single bag. It assumes no infants, no children, and so on. So it is fine to use the Simbrief weight logic option, which is selected by default. And it's also nice to have our VPT weight and logic available because we handle much more than Simbrief, and it will create a more realistic flight experience. But it has some limitations that we'll be covering here. So let's compare the 2 options. So the Simbrief weight and logic, which is the default one, it's a method that uses Simbrief bags and bag weight to generate a basic weight scenario, which does not include children or an infant, and the Simbrief weight and for adults and bag are used. So this will be really linked to your Simbrief profile. So if you change or make some nonsense in there, that will be included as it is. Just like I said, updating your Simbrief profile with the ICAO standard weight is highly recommended. Remember from the previous video, when we talk about the weight and balance in the manual, you have all the standard weight available to you. And it is obviously also available online. And so what does the VPT weight and logic add to the Simbrief option? So this method employs VPT's packs and weights logic and produce a more detailed scenario that considers variable loads of children and infants, resulting in changes to the average weight per passenger. And as a result, the weight and balance calculation is likely to be more realistic, but keep in mind that the weight calculated using VPT method may differ from Simbrief zero fuel weight. An adjustment may be needed inside your flight simulator. So basically we're gonna add some children that makes the average weight per passenger slightly different, and that will create some discrepancy between the Simbrief zero fuel weight and your actual zero fuel weight. Before explaining you how to deal with it and why, let's have a look at the second option that we have right here, and that all together will make much more sense. Now we have a Simbrief deviation load. So this is an option that has been already included in the previous version, but has been quite misunderstood by the general public. So I have added a long description here and of all the effect of the Simbrief deviation loads. So this one is not really interesting one, so I will just quickly regenerate a load. There we go. So I've just regenerated a new load to have a bit of discrepancy and a higher Simbrief deviation load. So the Simbrief deviation load is a random number between 0 and the selected option here, 15. That will actually simulate the difference between the PAX booking a flight and the passenger actually showing up to the aircraft. Passenger not showing up to the aircraft can caused by the passenger missing the flight, change of plan, sickness, and so on and so on. So it is actually normal on the 737-800 aircraft to see a difference about 10 passengers from what the booking to the actual number. And so this is what the Simbrief deviation loads do. Today there are only 3 passengers missing. So the first column, as you can see here, is the estimated weight from Simbrief. So Simbrief has estimated a number of passengers of 179. And as you can see, we have only 176 passengers on board. The estimated zero fuel weight was 59.1, and the actual zero fuel weight is 58.6. And so here you can actually look and find the differences. And if you use the VPT weight and logic system, let's try to find a load. So we have already one load here. Let's re-import it. Yeah, this one is quite interesting. So we have now a new load. So every time you press import, it will regenerate a new load and a new following the new selected logic. In this case, now we have 151 passengers with 10 child and 1 infant on board. So on top of the 10 children, would actually reduce the average passenger weight. We have about 15% of the aviation load. And as you can see here, this is the Simbrief estimated values. So we have estimated 179 passengers for 59 tons. And we have actually now 161 passengers with 56.7 tons. That's about 2.4 tons of difference. And you can count about a ton per 10 passenger. And as you can see, that kind of makes sense. Another way actually to check out the difference with the children is by going back to the passenger. As you can see, you have 151 adult, 10 child, and the average weight of the passenger has dropped to 81 kilos per passenger instead of 84. So this is the Simbrief deviation load and the 2 type of logic available for your Simbrief import. A very important note here is when you're using the Simbrief deviation load feature and the VPT logic, all combined or at least one of the 2, it is still important to manually check and put the correct weight values into your flight simulator. Because if you import this directly from Simbrief, Simbrief will load 59.1 tons. And by using this system and the Simbrief deviation load, then you have to adapt it to 56.7 tons manually by using your flight simulator options. All right, before we move on to the next part, let's have a look at the weight and balance system that has been generated. So as you can see here from the setup, we have 2 cabin crew, 5 cabin crew. This has been selected by Simbrief, which is one above the standard cabin crew for the 737. We have our passenger distribution right here. 10 child, 1 infant, all has been distributed among all the area. The cargo has been loaded. We're using the optimum logic. There's nothing to adjust right here. And the fuel has been imported from the Simbrief data. So if you remember from the previous video of weight and balance, we can actually now generate a fuel receipt. So let's do this just for the purpose of the example. Let's say we had 3,200 kilos in the tank. We have requested the fuel. And we're going to use the long receipt, generate it, and sign it. Let's go back to the virtual dispatcher. So now that the flight has been imported from Simbrief, we have to generate a load sheet. To do that, we have to go to the load sheet tab, select the format we want to. At the moment, there's only one format, the standard one. And in the future, I'm going to add different type of formats as requested. Once you have selected the layout, you press generate. And this is your load sheet. There is a lot to cover right here. So let's go from top to bottom, step by step. First, you can see here a green bar with the edition number 1, which is valid. So once you have selected all the options for your flight plan and you generate the load sheet, those must be the final numbers. So the dispatcher will create the load sheet, will print the load sheet with the final figures. If you messed up or try to change any selection here, so let's say you go change to 4 cabin crew, and you go back to the virtual dispatcher, see that the edition number 1 is not valid anymore. Of course, we have changed the setup, we have changed the data. So this data is invalid, so we must regenerate a new load sheet. Simply press generate, and as you can see here, edition number has changed to 2. So this is still an acceptable way to change, but this is not the best way to change something at the last moment. So make sure that you have all the loads, all the information set up before generating your load sheet. You might say that in real life, there are some cases where a last minute change is required. And I will respond to that it's absolutely correct. But for that, we have a last minute change option available, and we're going to talk about this later. So let's focus now on the load sheet. So on the top left corner, we have a logo of my fake virtual airline called VPT Airlines. If you're not part of any virtual airlines, you will have the standard virtual performance tool logo right here. And if you are part of a virtual airline, then you will see your own logo right here. Then the load sheet. It's a very standard format. I'm not going to go too much into details, but you have your aircraft information with a weight and balance profile. You have your flight dispatcher with his signature. If you print it, you can actually sign it here. You have your flight information here. And you have your weight distribution. So this is the cargo, holding 2 and 3, and the amount of weight loaded there. The weight of your passengers, the passenger distribution, so all are in economy. This is the total traffic load, so that will be your passenger weight plus your cargo weight. That create your dry operating weight, zero fuel weight, the takeoff fuel, takeoff weight, trip fuel, landing weight, taxi fuel, and so on and so on. And I have the balance and seating conditions, which are both expressed in percent of Mach and indexes. And below you have the load distribution by cabin zones, a small box for all the last minute changes, and your underload before LMC. This is actually what you can actually load more into your aircraft before reaching your zero fuel weight. So you're limited by your zero fuel weight, and you still have 13 tons available. Finally, we have again some message DM available here. And as you can see, there are some missing information, and I suspect that the fact we change the edition number to 2 by changing the number of cabin crew might have deselected the Simbrief data, and that led to some errors right here. Again, I will investigate this and fix it before release. And here we have your flight envelope limit expressed both in indexes and percent of Mach, and your current CG. Below you have a reminder of the weight used. So for the adult it was 84, child 35, and infant 0, and the standard weight used for the bag is 13 kilos. You have also some additional information. We have actually 1 blind on board. Finally, end of message information like this load sheet has been generated by a virtual performance tool, it's not to be used for real flight, and so on and so on. So guys, this was the load sheet. Sorry, I went very quickly through all the information, but you can, once you have access to it, you can take all the time you need to actually learn more about it. And now let's move to the flight envelope. The flight envelope is a combination of all the documents that has been generated for your flight. As you can see here, you have a Simbrief OFP. If you click here, it will open your flight plan. You have your load sheet with the edition number 2. If you open it here, you have access to the PDF. You have access to your fuel receipt. The take log, consignment note, and note log are not implemented yet. That will be part of the upcoming new features. And as you can see here, there's one new thing, passenger manifest. So let's have a look at the passenger manifest. As the name suggests, it will be a summary and a detailed plan of all the passengers on board. On this first page, you have a reminder of your virtual airline, if any, the date of the report, the flight from Brussels to Fiumicino, flight number. We have 3 passenger zones and the distribution here. So the A is for adults, 2 is for child, that's the total, and the infant. So as you can see, we have 2 child in the front, 3 in the middle, 5 at the back, and there's 1 infant located at the middle of the aircraft. So we have STM manifested 179 passengers, that's the booking number, then the check-in is 161. Remember, with all the Simbrief options and the Simbrief deviation load. So we have 18 passengers missing, which makes actually a total of 161, and we have 161 on board. Boarding is completed. Moving on to the next page, this is where it gets very interesting. So again, here you will have in the header all your flight and dispatcher name, and below is the list of all your passengers. As you can see, you have all the 160-ish passengers are right here, and they have been loaded following a very, very extended logic. So let's have a look at it. So first you can see we have the seating position. This passenger is seated at 01 Alpha. This is the booking number, the passenger name. So you have the last name followed by the first name. How many passengers are included inside that booking? This is a full faring passenger, so they are paying for their tickets. They are sitting into economy. That's the only option available here. And this passenger has some additional information, so up to 4 SSR codes. And this passenger has some bags. How many? 1. So let's have a look on different examples here. As you can see, on 3 Echo and 3 Foxtrots, we have a group of passengers. See, we have the same booking number. This is reminded here. So this booking number has actually 2 passengers. And as you can see, they share the same last name. And the special information here that we have is that Juliet is a child and she's traveling with her mother. And they are sitting next to each other. And as you can see here as well, Juliet has 2 bags. Let's have a look here at this example. Van Damme is a quite Belgian name. And we remember we are flying from Brussels to Italy. So the passenger name will be generated as follow. 40% will be generated from the country of departure, 40% will be generated from the country of arrival, and the 20 remaining will be generated randomly. So we have actually here some Belgian name, and as we move forward to the passenger manifest, you will also find some Italian names. So let's stop now at 04 Charlie. Madame Morgan Lefebvre has 1 bag, but we can also see here that she is blind. And some blind person travel with a special trained dog, which is allowed in the cabin. Not all blind people will travel with the pet, but in this particular case, she is. So let's now move on and try to find the infant. So we have another child right here. And we are moving towards the center of the aircraft. And as you can see here, Pierre is at 20, sitting at 20D, and he's traveling with 1 infant on board. So the infant is sitting on his lap. And we have a bit more child at the back, 28C, 29D, 31D, and Echo. And right here, this is also an interesting one. On 32 Foxtrot, we have again a child, and they have a buggy in the cargo hold. So as you can see, this passenger manifest has been created following a very extremely detailed logic, and I was helped by a real flight dispatcher in order to create a very realistic passenger manifest. And I found it still very interesting to have a look at and play around, try to find the blinds and so on. Alright guys, I'd like to make one final note on the passenger manifest. I have hidden 2 Easter eggs in the passenger manifest. They are pretty rare, so the best way to find them is to use it again and again for an extended period of time, and to maybe one day find those Easter eggs and report it to us with a screenshot of what you think is the Easter egg. And if you do so, and if you are the first one to find it, you will be rewarded with a lifetime VPT Pro subscription of your choice. Alright, we're back to the virtual dispatcher flight envelope. So once your flight is completed, you can simply press download all. This will create a folder that you can download, and inside that folder you will find all the documents related to your flight. In that way you can actually save and keep some history of all your flights. Alright guys, and before we move to the last minute change, I'd like to make a short announcement regarding our new partnership with Flight Dispatcher School, Jester, who has decided to use our tool for their performance in weight and balance calculation for the students. Located in Milan on Malpensa, Italy, Jester Flight Dispatch School offers highly professional courses that provide you with the knowledge and skills needed to become a successful flight dispatcher. Thanks to their team of certified instructors and following the ICAO regulation, Jester Flight Dispatch School will prepare you to embark on the exciting career as a flight dispatcher. Among all the subjects that will be covered during the training, aircraft mass and balance and performance are one of the most important courses to become a flight dispatcher. This is why Jester Flight Dispatch School has chosen us at Virtual Performance Tool to give you the best performance tool for your training. Milan is a truly beautiful city, but you don't even need to move there as the course is held entirely online. Your instructors will follow your progress and help you throughout the 3 months training, after which you will receive your double certification for EASA and the FAA. What a quick way to fulfill your dream job in aviation. And that's not even the best part. Thanks to our partnership with the Jester Flight Dispatch School, you are entitled to an amazing discount. Use VPT10 to get a 10% discount on the course. Requirements and conditions apply. Visit Jester.school for more information. Alright, and back to the last minute change. So as you can see here, we can disregard those first 2 steps, as this is not the purpose of the video, but regarding the weight and balance, we have a registration, the flight number, the weight and balance is completed, the loadsheet has been generated, and let's say now we have a last minute change. So what is a last minute change? Last minute change happens, like the name suggests, at the very last moment. So your dispatch has printed all the documents and something happens at the very last moment that requires your loadsheet to be updated. This could be a passenger feeling sick, a passenger being disruptive that you wish to offload at the very last moment. This could be a security threatened issue. This could be a bag that must be offloaded because the passenger didn't show up, and so on and so on. So how do we proceed? So let's have a look at the last minute change section right here. As you can see, it's a pretty large one, and there's a lot to cover in this. First of all, it says here, ensure that no adjustments are made to the weight and balance after utilizing the LMC. So remember guys, at this particular moment, your load sheet is generated. There's no need to change anything in the weight and balance system, at least manually. You are almost ready to go, and you have last minute change. So in order to utilize the LMC, you must use this tool and use the dispatcher to create your LMC. So in order to generate an LMC, we have to select if it's a positive or negative LMC. So are we adding or removing something? So let's say we are removing. What are we removing? Are we removing a passenger, a baggage, or some cargo? So let's start the example with one passenger. And let's say we are removing one passenger and he or she has a bag. So we press add, and as you can see here, we have an LMC of 97 kilos. So we are removing one passenger in the mid rows. So it's sitting in economy. The standard weight of the passenger is 84 kilos. And in the comment section, you will find the reason why. So this has been filled out by the dispatcher. So there has been some security issues with that passenger, and this passenger must be offloaded. That passenger has a bag in the forward hold too, that must also be removed. So the total LMC is minus 97 kilos, and the estimated time for that delay, for that last minute change, is about 6 minutes. You can actually launch a timer, which is actually displayed right here, as you can see. So once the LMC timer is out, the dispatcher will come back to you stating that the loading is completed and he's ready to go when you are. Let's stop the timer for a moment and let's add something else. Let's see now that we have a cargo. And so let's see now if we add a cargo of 200 kilos, and let's say it's some last minute humanitarian aid. So this has been added, so now we have a positive LMC of 103 kilos. But as you can see here, the absolute total is still at 297 kilos. The logic behind is that there's a limit to the amount of LMC you can actually do. And this one is set up at 500 kilos. This means that you cannot play around and add and remove a passenger 20 times and say stating at the end, yeah, but it's the same load. We add, we remove, we add, we remove. At some point, there's enough risk. There's a threat of having a mistake in that LMC. This is why we limit the change to up to 500 kilos. If the changes goes beyond 500 kilos, so let's see here I'm adding now, I'm removing 300 kilos of cargo, and let's say it's because it was due to some weight restriction. As you can see here, the total LMC is minus 197 kilos. That's still quite fine, but because we made so many changes at the last minute, this is now above the 500 kilos limit, and now a new load sheet is required. And by pressing this button, you can actually include all those changes into a new load sheet, and all the LMC list will be gone. And this is perfect normal because all those last minute changes will be actually included in this new load sheet. So those won't be anymore a last minute change. Those will be changes, but not a last minute change anymore. Let's reset the LMC. And the more you try to remove some passenger, you will see there are plenty of reason for that. See, like one passenger has been missing, one is drunk, one has requested to self-offload himself or herself, and so on and so on. So the possibilities there are pretty much endless. But there's one very specific condition where you have an LMC is when you as a captain decide to offload one passenger. So let's say now we want to offload one passenger. Let's say this passenger has a baggage, and you want to actually create an offload statement. So you select the offload statement, you add this passenger, and now to create the offload statement, you have to fill out a form. A lot of documentation, a lot of notes are available to you to understand when this offload statement might be generated. And you can also access to a blank form right here. that you can actually print and write yourself. So there's a few questions in that form. When did the event happen? So now let's say we are the boarding, so it's on the pre-departure. What is the reason of the offload? Let's say this passenger was violent with other passengers, and now we request the police, and we need to offload these passengers. So this kind of offload statement usually is related with the police. So this statement will be given to the police, so this police can use it as a basis for the investigation and prosecution if required. Now remember that the passenger that we want to offload is located at the forward 5 row. So he or she is located at the forward section of the aircraft. And this is the passenger name that has been chosen randomly, but you can actually also select any passenger located in the forward section. As you can see, it's a very extremely detailed feature with a lot of precision like this one. So that also means that you can actually have a look at your passenger manifests and update it manually, because Silva Juliet is actually part of the passenger manifest, like it with the booking numbers, the seating, and so on and so on. So who handled the event? By default, yourself, the captain, is selected, but the person that handled the event could be actually a cabin crew. So let's say it was Claudia that handled the event. And we can actually provide some concise statement on the facts and the reason of the offload. So you can actually write down something here. So as you can see, I've written a short description of the event, but if you are not willing to do so, or because maybe you didn't handle the event, you can actually let Claudia, the cabin crew, explain what happened by using the generic description. And now you have answered all the questions, and you can generate the statement. So the statement has been generated and is now available in the flight envelope. Let's have a look at this one. Again, you have your virtual airline logo right here, or the default virtual performance tool logo. The air safety report number that has been generated. Some details relating to the incident. So it has happened on the 24th of September in Brussels with the flight number VPT 1234. It happened on the aircraft pre-departure. Let me zoom in this for you. So as you can see, this has been selected. The type of incident was physical violence. The passenger name is Juliet Silva. The booking reference is here, and this actually obviously corresponds to the passenger manifest. And here's the statement written by the cabin crew, as it was the cabin crew that handled the event. And this cabin crew stated that prior to the flight, an alarming incident of physical violence unfolded as a passenger exhibited aggressive and violent behavior towards the cabin crew. Despite the best effort of the cabin crew to defuse the situation and calm down the violent individual, their attempts proved unsuccessful. The escalating behavior of the passenger posed a direct threat to the safety and well-being of everyone on board. As a result, the decision was made to deny boarding to the passenger in order to prioritize the security and comfort of other passengers. So the cabin crew has signed there. Yourself, as a commander of the aircraft Echo India, Echo and November India, formally request as the appropriate authority of the state of Belgium, as the departure airport, where basically the incident took place. So this is your crew code, the date again, some signature, the flight number, aircraft registration again, the police ID, and so on. So the original will be given to the police, and the blue copy, that's the one you have here. Here it's slightly blue, is to be kept into the flight envelope. So I hope this actually demonstrates enough the level of details we're aiming to with this tool. I hope this is the type of feature you will enjoy using from time to time in your virtual simulation in order to get a bit closer to the reality. And regarding to the last minute change, since we have offloaded a passenger, this must be reflected on the load sheet. So if you go back to the load sheet, as you can see here, the dispatcher has written in handwriting and has corrected all the loads. So we have inbound Fiumicino, we have one passenger less located in the forward passenger compartment, and we have one bike less in the hold 2, which is minus 13 kilos. So we have a total of LMC of minus 97 kilos. So as you can see, the load sheet has been generated in electronically, has been printed out, and now with the last minute change, the dispatcher comes with a pen and write down all the changes to the passenger numbers, weight, and a detailed information of the last minute changes by cabin area and cargo hold. Alright guys, once your load sheet has been generated, you can actually listen to your flight dispatcher. Let's have a look.
Good evening, Captain. Here is your load sheet. You have a total of 160 passengers plus one infant on board. We have 19 passengers less than expected. You have one blind. There is a total of 160 bags in the holds. The loading is completed. We are ready to go when you are. Have a safe flight.
And after the last minute change, you can also actually listen to your dispatcher that will actually summarize the last minute changes. To do so, listen to the LMC here.
Hello, Captain. I need to adapt the load sheet due to some last-minute changes. One passenger have been offloaded as per your request. We must search for one bag in the holds. This should take us about 5 minutes. I will let you know when we are ready to go.
Right guys, this is it for today. So remember, the virtual dispatcher is your assistant for your flight. It helps you to generate some random loads or import them from Simbrief, following a certain type of logic you want to use. The virtual dispatcher has a small checklist to help you through the use of VPT. Once you're happy with the loads, you must generate the load sheet, and if any changes is required to the load sheet, use the last minute change feature. Once everything is done and signed, you can actually download the flight envelope or access to different type of document like the passenger manifest, the offload statement inside the flight envelope. And when you're happy with all those, you can press download all. This will download a zip file. You can store it inside a folder and keep a track of all your previous flights. And so now let's talk about the upcoming features in the virtual dispatcher. After the release of VPT 1.00, we're planning to add the 2 additional features to the virtual dispatcher. The first one is the Easy Tech Log, which will be a simplified technical log for your aircraft that will be part of the flight envelope. And the second feature would be the ACARS system, and which will include ACARS uplink, like through Hopi, but also a way to print some information directly inside your flight deck printer. So far we have covered the VPT 1.00 introduction with the new airport and performance databases. We have done some demonstration about the takeoff dispatch, the wet and balance, and the virtual dispatcher. And in the next video, we're gonna covering the landing dispatch and the landing en route. But this might take a bit of time as we still need to fine-tune some of the features in those modules. Right, this is it guys. I hope you have enjoyed this preview of the virtual dispatcher. If you have, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so you'll be notified of all the new cool features that will be implemented in VPT 1.0. Thank you for watching, have a nice day and happy landings.